to everybody and their neighbor. Welcome back to Gear and Gigs. I am your host, Jetstone. So glad you guys could stop by again today. It's a show and tell slash research project. That sounds enticing. Let me try to rephrase that. It's kind of a review, but comparison, but we're going to get it done in a quickly sort of time. So, here we go. Kind of a show and tell, because there's three things to show and talk about. So this is a little bit by request and a little bit just out of morbid curiosity. So I'm going to pull this over here. This is the table of doom, as we like.
Magic.
The magic table of doom. My apologies. The magic table of doom with the magic cloth of mystery, right? And today we're going to be doing a comparison of, and Reggie has no idea, so it'll be interesting to see.
I don't. You're right. I don't. I am always curious, because for all I know, you're going to lift that up and there's going to be another car under there. Because this is happening.
Right. That's true. That's true. Here we go. Da, 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 da. It is. Three different Electro-Harmonix Electric Mistresses. That's right. We have the original deluxe. We have the stereo, and we have the deluxe, the green face deluxe, if you will, or maybe you want to call this the original. In some ways, this is the original, and this was the second one. So it depends on how you look at it. But this is vintage. This is a reissue. This is of its time, because that's still a current piece too. It's a very cool thing. But we're going to run the stereo one in mono just to be fair, because otherwise it seems unfair. Sorry, I look off to my right because there's where my monitor is. So occasionally you'll see me do that, and I'm just looking at myself. Going to run this one in mono. We're running them in series, but I'm only going to have one on at any given time unless we get fanciful. DC brick MXR to drive the whole thing. Well, not this one, of course. This has got the hardwired cord because it's a vintage one with the hardwired cord, so that's kind of cool. We're going into our trusty 2-Rock, which you see right back there. We got our trusty 2-Rock Studio 35 Pro, mic'd up with a 2-mic going through 2-Rock speakers. People have asked about the speaker. It's a 2-Rock cab speaker. Going into our Focusrite preamp there, our liquid channel, dishing out some solid state logic emulation. Going into our Digico for the A&D converters, and then right to your ears and into ours. We're not doing any post-processing of any kind, so it's just basically you're hearing it the same way we are. For a guitar of choice today, I'm going to be using it's relic as you can get, I think.
That's as relic as they come, isn't it?
Yeah, super ultra mega relic Strat. Sorry, I got to turn off my microphone. So I have down here at my feet a Coppersound Strategy preamp, a clean boost basically. So if I want a little grind or whatnot, I'll turn that on. And here's our dry sound. And now I'll turn on the Coppersound just so you can hear what that sounds like. All right, so there's our...
I know it's a clean boost, but it really kind of gets and I know it's pushing the amp, so it's the amp.
I have it set up that way right now, actually, to do that, because I had it not originally, but today when I was setting things up originally as a really just a boost, and it had enough headroom in the amp to stay clean. But in this case, for our purposes, I wanted to be able to add a little grind.
Right, yeah, but it's nice, very natural sounding.
Right, it's really ampy is what I keep using as my word.
It's very ampy. Yes.
Yeah, it's ampy. Yeah. All right, so we know we're going to like all these pedals.
Right.
We're just really going for a straight comparison on what are really the differences between these in sound. You can look at the differences on paper all day long. People can talk about all the different components, but the listener, the end result listener, doesn't think about that. When you listen to some record with a flanger on it, how often are you thinking, "Oh, I wonder what chipset he's using on that"?
Right.
You just don't. You enjoy the song. So let's just listen to it from that standpoint and listen to the character differences. And some of the feature differences are going to be apparent, like rate times and that kind of thing. But in general, I think we're looking for a character difference. And if you're making a buying decision, what are you going to get? What kind of flanger? What kind of electric mistress, I should say? Well, there are a few choices out there, so let's see what you're actually getting. So, which one would you like to start with, sir? The original, or the other
Let's
original?
start with the vintage, and then I think instead of going left to right all the way, I would start with the vintage and then go to the opposite end, right? And then because that one really is kind of its own thing.
So we think.
Right. Well,
we don't know yet.
In my mind, it is.
Right. But there are some preconceptions that go along with it.
Of the three, it's the only one that I've ever owned, and I've owned it 3 times.
Well, that's ironic. But that would make a horrible comparison. So
it would, yeah. No, you'd be comparing the same pedal. Of course, I didn't have them at the same time. It was like, had it, and then, no, I should have, I mean, there's a lot of gear. We've both done this.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's not for me. And then later on, you're like, you know what, maybe. And then you get it again, and you make the same foolish decision. And
or you're not using it then. You were using it for this big thing, but now you're not using it. So I'll never need that again. And then as soon as you get rid of it, some new reason for it is like, oh, man, if I only had one of those.
It's one of those things, though, that when that's what you're looking for, that is the answer. That's the recipe right there. It gives you everything you want in a flange chorus kind of thing, especially the stereo one, which is kind of tasty.
Once again, let's not have any preconceptions until we listen.
No preconceived notions here.
Okay, I have each of them set on at least a similar sounding setup. Okay. Each of which requires slightly different tweaks on the knob, so I'll tell you where they are. But in general, I've got it kind of doing one thing. So let's go through each of them doing this one thing, and then we can get into tweaking individually.
Okay.
All right. So I'll play some dry, and I'll turn this one on, then turn it off, then turn this one on, and then end up on this one last. Initial thoughts?
I don't dislike any of them. I guess if I was going to say one thing that stands out is on the vintage model, you have more of that, that that flangery kind of almost like an artifact sound. I mean, it sounds great, but neither of the other two really had that prominently, although I'm sure you could probably dial that in at some point. But it did seem more extreme than either of the second two, the second or the third. But they're all real. I mean, as soon as you turn it on, go from the clean to the flanger, it's like, oh, flanger's just one of my favorite effects anyway. Flangers and phasers and chorus and filters and delays and but yeah.
So let me go from clean to each one of these, and then back to clean, and then so you can hear the effect off of clean as opposed to in comparison.
That's a good idea. Okay. Interesting. I'll make an observation that goes against what I might like. You told me don't to have any preconceived notions,
Right. Right.
but you can't help having them anyway. You just kind of. So my comment will go against my preconceived notions.
Oh, there you
and
go.
as far as just the overall flavor, the newest one, the reissue,
Green
is
one.
the one that piques my interest more. And that's partially because the vintage one, I'm very familiar with that. It's been around forever. I've heard it on a million records, played with them, been around. You've had that one in the studio for a while. Love it. But the reissue, there's something about it, and it's a subtlety. So it's not which again goes against, generally for me, the crazier, the wackier, the better, right? But really, in a musical sense, the subtlety of that one just really kind of spoke. It was like, oh yeah, no, don't discount me. And I had kind of written it off to begin with, and now it's like I'm kind of more focused on, more interested in that one.
Interesting. To me, it has a clarity that the other two lack.
Yes, yes,
And the attack of the guitar comes through a little bit cleaner. You know what I mean? There's just like a more immediacy to it, a more of a presence feel to it, and it has less artifacts than the other. It almost has the swirliness of the vintage one, but without the noise and problems. But this one's got a certain modernness that this one also kind of has. It doesn't sound totally vintage. It sounds
yes.
It sounds fresh. It sounds fresh to me.
It does,
Okay.
and very musical, very very musical. It doesn't distract. You know how some effects it totally distract you from what's being played, and it's the effect that you hear and not the chords. And that doesn't do that at all. It's like the chords that you're playing on the guitar. I especially appreciate that you did the same four chords, right? Clean, this one clean, that clean, right? Because that did help define it a lot clearer. And I totally agree. There's a clarity to it. There's a warmth and natural musicality to it. And it doesn't distract you at all from what's being played. It just adds. It adds, and that's it.
I would agree. I would concur. What I want to try
What's
now
it called? What is it called? What is its name?
the Deluxe Electric Mistress, which of course is the same name as the Deluxe
Okay.
Electric Mistress. This is the Stereo Electric Mistress. Or not deluxe at all. Don't even begin to think this one has any deluxeness, because it doesn't. It would say so. It
But it
doesn't.
has stereo-ness.
It does, and we're not evaluating that. Although to be fair, any one of these you could make stereo by sending it to one side and sending a dry signal to the other side, and you get the same basic effect as what they all do with stereo modulation. So, just a way to cheat there. You could do that with anything, but what I want to do is try to get that especially halo-y, swirly effect that you can get out of the vintage one, and see how close we can get to recreating that here. Okay, you know the one I'm talking about, that one where it starts. Okay, so that requires a little cleaner sound down here. I'm going to go to this one, find that sound, and then I'll just try to dial these in. I'll go green one first. Well, no, now the green one is the one to beat. I'll do it last, so I'll go across this way, left to right to me. Okay, it's probably left and right to you too. Okay, here we go. If I could turn my mic off, my apologies. You can just hear it come into focus. It's like, oh, there it is. There's that thing. Oh man, that's just like the thing, isn't it? It's just.
I mean, it's a classic.
It's just so sweet.
It's truly a classic for a reason. It's like
Yeah.
It kind of set the standard for flangers when that came out. It's like, lots of
listen to the
people were
noise.
making them. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that too.
And I haven't even hit the distortion or the overdrive yet. Yeah, noisy, but you love things in spite of their problems, right?
Right.
You can like things all day
when you're
long.
talking now, obviously, if they do a reissue of that, and they reissued the noise with it, it would be disappointing.
Yeah, right. You'd be like, it's too good a reissue. What'd you do that for?
Right?
All right, let's see if I can find that halo-y sound here. Thoughts on those two compared?
They're comparable. They are. They're. I would say the vintage one is a little bit more dominant, right? It kind of pushes itself out front a little bit more.
Interesting.
Although effect-wise, I mean, you got very, very similar feel. The deluxe Mistress is a little less in your face than the stereo deluxe is a little less.
No, it's not deluxe. Remember, this one has
no
deluxeness.
That's the stereo, right? That's the stereo. The stereo Mistress is less in your face than the original deluxe.
Yes, I would agree.
It's
unless you cross a line, in which case you hear the rate so strongly. I mean, it's very hard to get that rate to disappear.
Yeah,
whereas this one, the rate disappears. You don't hear the individual modulation anymore, and you get the halo thing, which is really what you're trying to do, right? Is get rid of the obvious wow, wow. And this one is very hard to find that. This one's got a big fat sweet spot. This one to me seems far brighter and clearer than this one. This one seems a little dark, comparatively speaking, to me. All right, let's go to this guy, see if I can find the halo, the sound of the halo on the green guy. I didn't hate all three of them together. It was kind
I
of
was
cool.
going to say is I fully expected that to be just chaos, and it wasn't.
No, it kind of worked. It was kind of
It was nice.
Yeah, and it wasn't especially noisy. I thought it would be so noisy at that point, but it really didn't come across that way at all.
What I will say though, when you were going through three of them, I found this very interesting. Is the Stereo Mistress is the most different of the three.
It is.
And as far as reissues go, pedals reissue things from the past all the time, and it's like ballpark, but it's not really the same. Because we've done this before, where we were doing a vintage versus a reissue.
That's true.
And I think in most cases, it's like, well, the vintage still sounds better, even though it might have some warts like noise or some kind of extraneous something, right? But
I call that the forgivables.
They are forgivable because they're vintage, because
because the tone is so good, you go,
right.
I still want to like it more than I don't, so I'm going to
This sounds like a really accurate
the green one?
reissue.
Yeah.
You've lost the noise. It's not as rich and full as the original is, but I think that's just a matter of barely perceptible. Right, because it's so much more musical to me because it doesn't have that noise. Right, I don't have to forgive it for anything. It's already given me, it's given me.
That's unforgivable.
And in fact, I was thinking when you were going through that last, I'm always jacking around. I have one board that's a set board, and then everything else just kind of gets played with on and off. And sometimes I'll build it to a board, and sometimes I won't. But I'm always thinking about things that would work really well inside the effects loop of the Super Ego Plus.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh,
which has a bunch of
yeah.
it has a bunch of built-in stuff. It has a flanger that's based on the Deluxe Mistress anyway, but it's you get 11 effects. None of them are terrible, but none of them stand up to the actual real deal, right? So which is nice that they give you the 11, but they still leave the loop, so you can still put whatever you. That would be an ideal pedal for inside the loop of that. And I traditionally would use a chorus in that slot, but I think this flanger would be even better.
And I should say, by the way, that on this one, which I forgot to mention this, so my apologies, but there's a chorus knob. There's chorus built into this.
Right,
as well.
yeah, that one.
I've had that knob all the way down the whole time, so I've just been listening to the flanger side of things.
And that's kind of the magic of that. That's what makes that pedal special. Is it is a chorus and a flanger, and you can use them both at the same time, and it kind of, which is a very unique effect by itself.
It's its own halo thing. Let's listen to that real quick, just to give it its fair shake, because it does enhance its halo. Okay, now that changed everything for me. Well, all of a sudden, this got complex and interesting. The stereo one got complex and interesting.
That's the thing about that pedal, though. It's so unique because that's all it has, right? It's a rate, so the rate controls both the flanger speed and the core speed, right? So they're always synced together, and then it's just a matter of how much flange versus how much chorus. But you're right, when you stack the two of them together,
you start to get this. You get this thing, that thing. But the thing that I noticed is that made this sound way more simple, way simpler, way more simple. Great,
way more simpler,
and then I could hear the difference of that simplicity between the green one and the older one. More so when I went to this one sounded more complex like this, whereas this one didn't. So all of a sudden I'm back to really liking this one now.
Yeah, it's a head spinner.
I've modulated.
I still all three of them. None of them. They're all good. They're all great.
It redeemed itself quite a bit as soon as we added the chorus. It was like, oh, okay, now I see why you're here. Okay.
Right. It almost is an advancement on the flanger. It's like having that chorus included really does add complexity to the sound, and it makes it almost its own thing.
I want to hear just the chorus by itself. It's a particularly nice chorus. It really actually is very pleasant.
It is. It's a fine chorus.
Yeah, that really, I can see where that would help. Okay, so that was interesting. Now, just as a last thing, I do want to try it with a little boost on the front end.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because the boost will be going into these pedals, so that's, that'll change the way these react, I'm assuming.
Drive them suckers.
Let's find out. I'll go this order, I guess. Should I leave the flanger?
Might as well, because it is sort of a different animal.
Okay, we're going to do that then. It's just instantly inspiring to have that.
Tasty. That's yum. That's interesting because I actually prefer that clean. It gets a little too much.
Well, that was interesting because now the simplicity of this one actually works to its advantage with the distortion because it never gets that overwhelming.
Right.
It's really overdrives, not distortion. This one, as you said, it got too brittle and a little choked. This still rocked.
That was Alex Lifeson. As soon as you played the first chord, I was like, "Oh, that's Alex Lifeson right there."
Which that's of course what he used, I think, or at least something of that age. And that's that. Oh, sorry. That to use my standard phrase of approval, that doesn't suck a lot. Any one of them is pretty cool. Okay, so you have to pick one. This is your flanger for studio and live use for the rest of your life. You can only have one. Which flanger is it going to be? I know.
All right, since I've already had the stereo Mistress 3 times, I'm going to go with the reissue. I'm going to go with the reissue, and because of its simplicity. Right. Because it does one thing, but it does that one thing very musically. Although I would be curious for you to, how flangers you can dial them in where it's like, where would you ever use that sound?
Okay, sure. Let's see how wild we can go.
Touch of that. Mm-hmm.
So it can do the seasick thing as well as a bunch of other weird things.
Does it well. Plus, it takes the dirt nicely.
It does. For the most part, it does take the dirt nicely. This one, I think you have to be more cautious. This, I think, would take anything you throw at it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, what are the extremes on this one, though? Does it do the extremes? I'm not sure. Okay, that one just sounds good no matter what you do with it. Really.
Yeah, it does.
That's my pick. I picked the big, just totally impractical, attached cord monster real estate taking behemoth that puts out too much noise.
It's forgivable for the noise just for how rich it is. And it really is. I mean, of the three even, although it's unfair to compare the stereo because when you add the chorus and the flange together, it adds a depth and density to it that you don't get with either of the other two. But then when you go reissue and original, like, oh, the richness of the original, it's not all there on the reissue. Although I will say, for a reissue, pretty close.
Yeah,
pretty close. And it's quiet.
It's quieter. It's not as warm. It's quieter. It's brighter, but not in a it's brighter way. It's just kind of clarity to it.
Yes.
This one seems a little muddier to me, but it's a fattener. If you have a bright situation, this would actually be the choice I would.
Yeah, and it sounds great with a clean guitar tone.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, it adds such a, it's lost for words. Trying to describe sounds. It sounds yummy.
There you go. Yeah. Well, there you go. There's the comparison. In case you've wondered what the difference is in tone between these three, there you go. Now you know. Now we know. I was interested. So
that's what we think.
Yeah, fascinating. And now you know which ones we choose. Which ones would you choose? Leave us a comment. Let us know. We'd be interested. In the meantime, we will bid you adieu. I'm Jet Stone, and for Reggie, I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.